Call this meeting to order at 4:41 p.m. Let the record reflect that Alder Galvin, Alder Burnett, Alder Hutchinson, and Alder Johnson are all present. Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
A motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item D, approval of minutes. Approval of the Finance Committee minutes from the November 29th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Hutchison and a second by Galvin. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item E, regular business. Number 1, for consideration with possible action on the purchase of Fortinet EPP-APT, EDR/MDR, and multi-factor authentication software and support for 36 months, for a total cost of $154,125. Director Haranek.
Good evening. We've been researching this probably for 9 months with Deputy Director Dave Wilkett and Cybersecurity Specialist Jason Bamman. And these purchases are recommendations from our cybersecurity insurance provider, which is EDA, which is basically endpoint detection and response, and MDR, which is a subscription service that will tie into our servers. And if they spot malware, they're supposed to fix it before we even notice it happens. So, and then the other purchase is multi-factor authentication, another requirement by our cybersecurity insurance provider, and then the EPP-APT is kind of a virus protection software that is replacing our current software. So we're going to be implementing that this year. This is a 3-year contract, so you're actually paying about $50,000 a year. It's going to replace some software, so we're not, 3 years from now, it's probably, going to be offset a little bit by replacement of some software. So,
Okay. Thanks for being here, your last meeting.
thank you very much. It's
Appreciate your service to the city.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate what you guys do too.
Every meeting we think it's his last. And then
Yeah,
This
finds
is
a way
it. This
here.
is it. This is it. So, any questions?
No? All right, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Burnett, a second by Hutchison. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Just as your last item should be, slam dunk. All right, item number 2, for consideration of possible action, acceptance of the State of Wisconsin Department of Administration Neighborhood Investment Fund Grant Program for $5 million as part of the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. I think this is just a formality to actually accept the grant. I did notice one thing. I presume it's a typo, but there was a reference in here to the shipyard.
Right.
Did that just kind of slip in from another grant?
That's correct, Alder. That's what we remember. If you remember correctly, that was a late night getting those narratives in. So
Okay.
I think that was just a leftover.
All right, so we'll at least just take that as a sort of a Scrivener error. If you could please correct that.
Yep, no problem.
Proof that we actually read the packet.
I'm good with that. It's okay.
Alder Burnett has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Director. I think this would go to you. $5 million grant. At what point down the line do you foresee any city dollars needing to supplement or match the dollars moving forward into the future?
There is no formal match essentially required at this point, Alder. Essentially what we've got is we're currently using, in terms of the grant itself, we essentially use the land value, the appraisal value of the donated land from JBS, as well as the $500,000 donation that they made on that property as kind of our match for this program. Certainly as we get into the redevelopment and reuse of the site, as we go through, I think the intention is obviously to kind of start on the community park aspect of the project first. I think perhaps I think the one main question that we don't know at this point is the actual infrastructure dollar figure that's going to be required to probably connect the street and utilities through this particular area. We think that this stretch should be covered, the majority of that at this point. But obviously with in this pricing environment, we're certainly not absolutely positive of that. So I think that there'll be some question, I think at some point where we're actually looking at a proposed residential aspect of this development. That's when we'll know for sure if there's going to be an additional requirement at that point or not.
So 25.6 acres Will the city maintain ownership of the land for housing development, or would we sell to private developers so we can generate some tax revenue?
Yeah, the idea is that a majority of certainly the residential aspect of the project, but we're going to be seeking private developers for certain on that. That is the intent right now. We've certainly looked at, obviously, the community park space and perhaps the urban agriculture sections, either potentially being on city-owned land. Even for the urban agriculture section, right now, our intent is to try to work with WPS on trying to utilize the area underneath the power lines there. That's normally an unutilized area anyway. So, but yeah, we definitely are going to be looking for the residential aspect to generate some taxable value for this project, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Director Steck-Schulte, just a question about the breakout on this. Obviously, 1.5 million for housing development, 2.5 million for a community park, and then $1 million for the urban farm concept. Admittedly, I presumed maybe that there'd be a little bit more applied towards the housing development. And look, I'm open to an education here. 3 million for a community park and $1 million for an urban farm concept. Are we right side up on that kind of proposal? And does the state allow any deviation within this grant agreement, that if that park comes in less, that you can have a grant agreement change?
Oh, absolutely. There's always amendments, procedures that we can be looked at on that. And I think that we're really going to be counting on is the redevelopment plan up front. We're really going to dial those costs in for us at that point. So when we actually have a physical layout and alternatives of conceptually where we think which areas will be prone to what particular parts of the project, at that point, that's going to allow us to get some pretty good dialed in some specific cost estimates for that. And if it's required, there absolutely can be an amendment to these line items, so not a problem.
So I assume the housing development allocation is for incentives for developers?
At this point, that's what we're anticipating, or there might be, depending on exactly, we may need to take some infrastructure out of that as well. But certainly the infrastructure cost probably would be divided across all three of those categories, because all three of those uses will require some sort of infrastructure access. So.
Do you anticipate the creation of a residential TID in that area?
If state statute will allow us to do that at some point, it's certainly something we would like to consider, especially if there is some affordable components of it. If the state would allow us to do so, I think we would definitely want to take a look at that as an option.
Okay. The reason I'm asking the questions I'm asking, I'm trying to obviously keep as much of that anticipated new assessable value on the tax roll as possible. And when I see something like $3 million for a park, I mean, is that really the amount that's necessary to build a park, or can we use that to get assessable value in the ground without providing TIF assistance?
Yeah, I think that ultimately will be on whatever the selected design for that park facility ends up being. And certainly at this point, what we've gone forward is trying to kind of identify that as a clearly a destination and a community-wide capacity level park facility, whatever that would be envisioned at this point has not been determined. That would be part of the redevelopment planning process that we're getting ready to embark on probably at the first of the year.
Okay, and I know you have a lot of work to do yet on this, and I don't think we necessarily need to dig in on this particular grant agreement. I think it makes a lot of sense, obviously, to accept this. I just want to know what kind of flexibility we have to move things around, because right now, as we all know, I mean, housing development, it's really, really difficult to close gaps right now. And I just, to see the amount that we're allocating towards housing versus some of the other items, I can't help but wonder if it makes more sense, right, to incent the housing component, because if you get the increment in, then it's a lot easier to fund the other things.
No, absolutely, Alder. We certainly agree. I think it's, certainly this was done, really prior to a lot of the costs increasing and going kind of the way they have here the last several months. But certainly staff, I don't think any of us anticipate any issues with reallocating those between those categories if we need to.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
A motion by Galvin, a second by Brunette. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 3, consideration with possible action on a request by Department of Public Works for a sole source purchase of an Aries TR 3320 Pathfinder tractor with case and an Aries PE 3530 CCTV camera with case from JWR Incorporated in the amount of $51,200. 229. There's a lot of acronyms on this agenda. Alders, any questions? If none, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Burnett, a second by Galvin. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 4, for consideration of possible action, acceptance of the
It should say WDDC.
WDDC, yep, Community Development Investment Grant for up to $250,000. Alders, any questions? This is really just us being a pass-through.
That's correct.
Sorry. So, I do need to abstain on this item because the grant recipient is a member of my executive committee that oversees my compensation.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Hutchison. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 301. Item 5, consideration of possible action on the First Amendment to the resolution adopting the city's plan for expenditure of funds received pursuant to the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This is essentially the directive to put everything in one category. Alder Burnett has a question?
Yeah, I do have a question about it. So it looks like 4.25 million of unapproved funds towards the economic impact funds. Does that mean, just want to clarify, that means that we can designate that to any of the original categories?
Attorney, did you give a question?
Yes, my understanding is that it would still have to qualify under the categories that are provided under the rules that were put forward by the U.S. Treasury, but it wouldn't be within the buckets that we had initially, or that council had initially adopted. It would still have to qualify under the federal rules.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, but I guess the final line, I just want to make sure it says, towards the very end of that line, the remaining balance of approximately 4.25 million of unapproved funds toward the economic impact fund. So when I see economic impacts funds, that a person could assume that that would be for economic development or likewise, but I just want to make sure we're clear that we can use that for public safety, for green infrastructure, for basically
Right.
anything, as long as it
Yes,
is.
so essentially, this new resolution is creating two buckets, the lost revenue bucket and then everything else.
Okay,
And everything else is, the purpose of ARPA funds generally were to rectify or help address negative economic impact
okay.
felt by communities and local authorities due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So that's why it's phrased that way, because essentially all those categories kind of always circle back to some sort of negative impact or harm that has been felt. And so that's how it's structured for the wishes of council from the last council meeting.
Okay, so attorney, then you would say that this would kind of capture the spirit and the letter of what we were discussing at the last council meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
Essentially, you just have two categories. One category that can be utilized for anything so long as it qualifies under the rules, and then the other category for lost revenue.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other questions? Everyone on board?
Move to approve.
I'll second that. We have a motion by Burnett, a second by Johnson. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. The next two items have closed session language. I presume we could take both of these items up with one motion to go into closed session? Attorney Bunkert, is that good?
They're for different.
Yes, we could do a motion to go into closed session. However, you'll need to read both bases as they are for two different reasons. And so we'll discuss them separately in closed session.
Sure.
But you would have to read both reasons for each item separately into the record as to the reason why we're going into closed session.
Yep, do we need to suspend the rules and take them both up at the same time? Is that a requirement, or can we just read the language?
No, you can just read the language because you're not approving anything.
Okay. Someone want to do that? Is that okay?
Oh, do I want to do it?
read it.
Read the language, man. See if you're a good reader or not.
Yeah. The committee may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.85 sub 1 sub G Wisconsin statutes for the purpose of conferring with legal counsel for the governmental body who is rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved. The committee will thereafter reconvene in an open session pursuant to section 19.85 sub 2 Wisconsin statutes to take action on items discussed in closed session, if appropriate, and to consider the remainder of the agenda. Second one is the committee may convene in closed session pursuant to section 19.85 sub 1 sub E Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public properties, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The committee will thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19.85 sub 2 Wisconsin statutes to take action on items discussed in closed session, if appropriate, and to consider the remainder of the agenda.
So I'll entertain a motion to take items 6 and 7 into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Language has been read. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We are in closed session. Good. All right, we'll entertain a motion to return to open session.
Motion, so moved.
Second. We have a motion by Galvin, a second by Burnett. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 6, report of the Claims Committee.
I make a motion for staff to proceed as discussed.
And approve the balance of the report.
Yes,
Yep.
for item 6 and item 7.
We're going to take just 6 right now. Yep.
Yeah, I'll second.
Okay, so that was a motion to proceed as directed and approve the balance of the report. That is the motion by Galvin. We have a second by Burnett. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 7, for consideration and possible action to authorize the engagement of Hush Blackwell as outside counsel to provide legal assistance related to the Lambeau Field Stadium lease.
Make a motion for staff to proceed as directed.
We need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve by Alder Galvin, second by Alder Hutchinson. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 8, for consideration of possible action, the resolution authorizing budget amendments for unbudgeted community events and costs offset by invoices for a total of $39,719.27. Alder Burnett.
Yeah, thank you. I know we had talked about this 3 or 4 months ago, and we have seen a lot of those come up. I mean, Chief isn't here, but are we going to ever see the end of this? We're spending a lot of money on these community events for police overtime. I know they gave the rationale, but
We're getting reimbursed.
yeah, reimbursed. But I mean, is it just going to continue per special event, like every month? Because there's got to be a better way of.
The way we currently budget is we budget, not knowing how many events we're gonna have, we don't budget for any revenue. And so as we have these events, we build back and then we create that budget for the added expense and the added revenue. So the way we're currently doing it, yes, I foresee that we're gonna see these quite often. The alternative would be to budget a flat amount for revenue, budget for all those expenses, but then what if you don't have them? Your expenses could still be in there, now you don't have the revenue, so we'd be short. So
And that affects us for expenditure restraint, right?
yes, that as well.
Yep.
See, and that's fine, I understand that reasoning, and thanks, Pam, but the thing that kind of concerns me is like, meeting after meeting, we see these, people look at this as a standalone, because we don't discuss them at every meeting. They're thinking, what the heck's the city doing, all these community events, unbudgeted overtime, and the perception. And as
Right.
long as we're all aware of how do we explain it to people who might question
Right, because this has been going on for
Yeah,
50 years, and we
Yeah.
just recently changed the way we do it, so.
anyways, so, motion, is it to?
So I wonder if perhaps that could be a standing section of the agenda is like budget amendments.
Yeah, like down at the bottom of,
Recurring.
After new business.
yeah.
Because, I mean, we even talked during the budget process, right, with some of the moving around, that there's a strong possibility that staff may have to come forward with more of those this year than in past years. So if that's going to be a recurring theme, let's just create a section for it. And
possibly, and you might say I'm uninformed as an alderman, but I think I'm informed, but an uninformed person from the public, they look at this and meeting after meeting, they might be thinking, what the heck, the city doesn't know how to budget? Like 40,000, 10,000, 30,000 for police and fire? I don't know. Maybe I'm splitting hairs, but just, it would be a concern to me if I was a member of the public.
And again, I think COVID 2020 was a very good year, right? There were almost no special events happen. So if we would have budgeted, let's say $300,000 for special events, revenue coming in and expenses, and then we potentially didn't do any, then we would have been way off budget. In this case, we wait till the event comes, and then because it's offsetting, we have revenues and expenses, we just budget for both of them, and then you see both sides of it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Did we have a motion?
Motion approved.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Galvin, second by Burnett. Any further discussion? Seeing none, those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Good points, though, Alder Burnett. Item F, informational. Number 1, 2022 contingency account, $184,297. Unobligated is $57,297. Alders, any questions? All right. The next Finance Committee meeting will be held on Tuesday, January 10th, 2023 at 4:30 PM. A motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion by Alder Burnett to adjourn, a second by Alder Hutchison. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. We are adjourned.